Another year, another bunch defense video. It's kind of crazy how, it works out like this every year, but, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. With this, formation gun bunch, you can realistically attack every area of the field with it, and pretty quickly. You have crossers and corners going, every which way, burning man coverage, and finding those areas of the field that zone coverage or spot drop zone coverage just can't account for, right? You only have so many zones that you can use in a given play. You can craft together some insane guessing combination of man and zone, and you might think you have them locked down, but the decent to good bunch offenses will always pull something different out of their sleeve, hit you where you least expect it and when you least expect it. So what do? Well, for one, we can use the bunch defense that was actually put into the game to defend just that, right? And the one that everybody seems to avoid for some reason, and that's cover 4 box. I made plenty of videos about this throughout the years. This year it's a little bit different, which is why I'm making a video on it. So, this year, one of the main things that is different is that it's in palms, it's in quarters, and it's in cover 6. So you should have no problems finding it in your playbook. It has some major coverage bugs, sure, and it seems like most of the people that run bunch know those things. But like with everything else in this game, we can work around them, and then hopefully these guys don't have any answers for it after that, which I don't think they will for the most part. Of course, throughout the game, the great players will still find their holes and their weak spots, but if we're constantly moving those around and being unpredictable, we can increase our chances of success against that. So in this video, we'll go over at least 3 major ways of playing cover 4 box and some minor adjustments around those. So let's call cover 4 palms out of Big Nickel over G to start. This can be quarters, and it can be any other formation, but this is fine. And then we're gun bunch here. I think deep corner is a great place to start. So right away, just this is how I always explain how cover 4 box works. It's a stock way of defending flood from compression. It's easily the best way of doing it. You just have to call it. You don't have to set up any spot drop zones, or you don't have to do any guessing games with man coverage or anything. It's already set up for you. So I'll just go ahead and run this. Hopefully I don't get any sort of pass rush, and we can show the replay here. So cover 4 box, because you have 4 defenders making a box over 3 receivers. So the quarter flat is the bottom right corner of the box, the corner is the top right, safety is the top left, and the middle linebacker, or the 3 rec, is the bottom left. So you see to the flat, you see the quarter flat take it immediately, much like you would with a hard flat, or like a 0 or 5 yard zone adjusted flat zone. And then you have the top right guy who's taking the corner route, right? He gets in this perfect spot that there's no way you could ever complete this corner route against that. So just calling this, the flood is taken out of the play, which is really, really nice. And over here, I kept the post here for a reason, because it's not just a dumb streak where this quarter zone is just carrying him because he happens to be in that zone. This is match coverage. The defense is built into the structure of it, rather than, again, just a guessing game and hoping things work out. So in this case, it's a vertical route. It doesn't matter if it's a post or a streak. In this case, it's a post, so he matches him across. There's a pretty huge speed discrepancy here, so he gets burnt a little bit, but he's got help on the weak side with this safety right here. So those 3 routes are never going to be completed. Then you have the running back here, who's on a little check down. Nobody's ever really, well, maybe, I don't know. But this isn't a common route to get beat on, but you have the will linebacker here. He's man-to-man coverage on him. He might give up this 5 yard completion, or he might knock that out. And then you have the dig here, which has been a good route in previous years. In this year, if that's in man coverage, it's not so good of a route. So you see, we stick to it pretty well here. I chose the Colts in particular because their secondary is very mediocre and quite slow. This is Goodwin, one of the good ones. 97 speed. Eventually here he just completely runs away from the corner. But if it's Ultimate Team and you pick AJ Terrell or something, cheap fast corner, this dig route is essentially taken out of the play. There's nothing you can do there. So this stock, really nice stock play that has a number of good zone beaters and man beaters as well, is essentially locked down with just the structure of this really nice match coverage. And what's nice about it is that once the play breaks down, i.e. everything's covered and your opponent sees that everything's covered, naturally they're gonna try to scramble or playmaker. So it's up to you to figure out the scrambling, right, with your contains and your spies and everything. But if they're trying to playmaker anybody, like say this guy, or anybody really, they're all in man coverage, right? So the defender on them is going to follow them. It's not like spot drop where you guess right initially on the hard flat, say, but they just push those guys up the field and get a huge gain off that. If this guy's to get pushed up the field, this guy's just going to carry him. Now, if this is a linebacker and this is like, a really nice running back, your Zekes or your Saquons, they're probably going to beat them. But if you put a safety there, he should be able to match up with that. So structurally sound, a great starting point to work off of. Now, the big issue that I've found so far, and that a lot of people have seemed to catch on to, is that there is a bug with the change that was made to cover 4 box. So I think slowly this safety is getting a little bit more involved. Before, he used to be quite passive and really just matching deep post routes. But now he's starting to get a little bit more involved underneath. Before, say if it was a cross or a post, he might totally pass it on to this weak safety, but it isn't a pentagon coverage, it's a box coverage. It's just these 4 guys, and this safety should really be in his own half, unless he has nothing to do and he'll help out on crossers. But it should be a box coverage, so if there's anything crossing from this side, this guy will match. Now the problem with that is that if you have some crazy combinations, like say this, you can get guys completely free over the top right here for the 1-play score that, again, a lot of people seem to know how to do. So there's a couple of ways of going about this. The easiest way is to use this yourself, but you probably don't want to do that. But, very straightforward and very simply, we can just put him in a deep half there. Now this, again, makes it so it's not a box coverage, what I was talking about before. We're going to have to leverage this weak side safety a little bit more, making it actually a pentagon coverage. But in this case, we are going to be safe over the top. Okay, right? It's just a regular deep half. So if they do this again, and if I try to throw that, I got the safety there, ready to make the play, and potentially catch them off guard. Now here's the other cool thing about this. If I run verticals out of just, against just regular cover 4 box, watch how this crosser gets open quite a bit here down the sideline. So what happened there is, again, box coverage. This guy's taking the top left corner of that box. And usually, as with crossers and posts in this game, anybody in man coverage is going to struggle in transition, and that's exactly what happens here. Not to mention, he's just putting himself in a bad position even before the cut. So he's already 5 yards behind, potentially more. And the thing is, this weak side safety doesn't match him because the programming has this guy matched up. So not in every case, but in most cases, you won't have 2 guys matched on one guy. It might look like it sometimes, like in this case, but it's really just this guy that's matched. This guy is just zone pattern matching. He's kind of in his zone, and then once the ball is thrown, then obviously he's going to run towards it. But if he was truly matching, he'd get in front of this crosser. So just leaving it as is, we have the big play over the top to the right, and then we're vulnerable to crossers towards the left, or vice versa if they flip it. Now what's cool about the adjustment here is not only are we making ourselves safe over the top against that bug to the right, it's also that, and you probably guessed it, is that now the weak side safety is going to get a little bit more involved on the crossers here. So if I go ahead and run this exact same thing, you see how, and I didn't get any time in the pocket there, but we should still be able to see in the replay. So you see now if we have the crosser, he's keying a little bit more inside against this crosser, and he does actually an okay job of covering him. Now there is still a big speed, like this guy is it Rieger? He's got a nice speed advantage over this guy, but again, if you're playing an ultimate team, you can go out and get the fastest guys, and you should have no problem locking this down. And potentially, if they try to throw that, you can click on and undercut that for a pick. And it doesn't stop there. So if I go here and pick wide receiver post against just a stock cover 4 quarters, a cover 4 palms, we have the potential to hit everybody over the top, even if it is a little bit tight. But again, if we are doing the deep half adjustment over here, that's just going to add one more defender over there. So if they are running this, there's really no way that they can ever get that over the top, because you're going to have that extra safety there ready to pick that off, which is nice. And we don't have to worry too much. As I showed you in the very first example over here, where this strong safety is matching this post right over here. But if we're putting in a spot drop zone, he cannot match that guy anymore. But again, we're leveraging the weak side safety right here. So if we try to throw that post, again, we have him there to make a play on that ball. So already we can see how this is going to turn out nicely for us. But of course, we are giving up a little bit right here. So first of all, he's not going to be playing he's not going to be playing as aggressively underneath against potential curl routes, but that's never something you're really going to be worried about. The one thing that you should potentially be worried about, let me just get this guy out of the way, is just straight up vertical right up the middle of the field right here. Just like that. There's not going to be anybody account for that. So that's something you're going to have to potentially watch out for. So very similar to the cover 9 video I did there a couple of videos ago, where we're having the safety in a deep half towards the trip side. This is very similar to that. You could almost consider this as cover 9 adapted towards bunch. We are going to have to watch out if the tight end goes right up the middle here. In that case, if he does, we're going to want to carry him all the way up the field. It really isn't something that you see often, but if it starts to be something you see, we do have other answers for that. One of them can potentially be that maybe you will take one of these defensive linemen out and put him in a 3-rec himself, and then you could potentially, move up the field, but you're not giving up the short middle. By the way, if I was just taking any of these D linemen and just bluff blitzing them, that'll put them in a 3-rec there, and then you still have the structure of your defense, but you can be a little bit more free in this high hole area here. Or, you could potentially leave everything the way it is here, and you could also be somebody that uses this weak safety right here too. You could really start way over here, make sure nothing's hitting you directly up the middle of the field, and then you would work with crossers going this way as well. So you have a couple options there right away, just in terms of who you use it right here, whether it's this guy or this guy, or you could even just put the middle linebacker. If you want to be super safe against every possible deep thing, posts or anything like that, you could put him over there. And if you're in like a 2-4-5 odd or 3-3-5 odd or something like that, well, I guess you wouldn't be, because you don't have cover. You would have to create this out of cover 6, but you would essentially replace yourself with a D lineman and use her in the middle of the field. So just deep half that strong safety, and just make sure nobody's coming right up here before you do your other user tasks that you want to be. But generally as a middle linebacker, you are the bottom left corner of that box, so you are going to want to take anything that goes this way, right? So if we look at, say, our will linebacker right here, which is our weak side flat defender in a way, he is man-to-man on the running back. So a lot of people will like to put him on a little seam or put him on a little wheel route. But what that means is that this guy is man-to-man on that, and he does a great job. First of all, we'll just go ahead and show that. He comes down essentially kind of like a hard flat, and then if he wheels up, he's got that covered as well. But the thing you got to watch out for as a user is that, again, if this guy's wheeling out, this guy is no longer the flat defender. He's man-to-man on the running back, so there's no flat over there. You have to carry any shallow crossers coming from that side. So if you're not careful, what can happen is something like this. because the CPU doesn't do a good job anyway, is that they could drag across. Now, it's not a great option, but it's something that's there for them. So if we are using this first adjustment, you can either be the middle linebacker who's checking for the vertical right here and then working bottom left, or if we're the weak side safety, we can check for the vertical here and then work our way deep outside. So we do have some options there. Now, if you're coming up against somebody that's blocking their running back, say if you're hitting them with some edge pressure and stuff like that, you can potentially use this weak side linebacker because he'll be free to play the flat, and you can be an extra defender there, where this guy's kind of playing the hook, and then you can play any drags, or you could just leave him to play his flat. You have your options between essentially these three guys, more likely the safety and the 3-rec. And before we get into the next setup here, let's talk about this weak side wide receiver for a little bit here. If we're playing things just the way that they are here, we saw already that, well, first of all, we know that if he runs a streak, there's nothing he can do there. He's going to be covered. If he's running this dig, as long as you have the speed, that's going to be covered. And if he's running a post, that's going to be covered as well, because you'll have the deep half. The corner usually does a pretty good job on that post. And then you also have that weak safety that can sometimes help out as well. So he's essentially not going to do anything there. If they're running an out here, the corner does a much better job this year against that. Again, assuming you have a decent corner. So, if you're going all in on this, you could definitely go get some one step ahead corners, and they're going to play that really, really well. They're going to take that completely out of the play. Or what you can do, if you do have a fast corner that can press, you can go ahead and press this guy. And that'll essentially just completely take him out of the play, because even if you run something like a drag, that's going to be taken out of the play. Now, you got a really fast receiver here, but it's just really nothing that they can do there. Again, the benefit of match coverage is that it's not just man across the board, it's kind of smart structural man across the board, where you'll have man there, but then you'll have some support from other guys that didn't necessarily need to man up. Right, it's a 7-on-5 coverage, not like a 1-on-1s all across the board with a couple of predictable zones here and there. So things are really working with each other. You just got to account for the big bugs, which we're doing, and then account for the little hot spots that we can't, like we just showed there. Okay, on to the second setup. So the second thing you can do if you want to, again, this is all based off that big bug. We want to account for that first and foremost. But if you want to change it up a little bit, I would say this one isn't as good, but I wouldn't stick in the other one all game long. It's definitely good to change it up. Now, I showed you a couple different things that you can do around that, but a bigger change you can do is man yourself up on the tight end. And you don't even have to worry about the tight end. You can still do your regular 3-rec usering that you would want to do. But what that does, and this relates to the crosser that I was showing you earlier, is that, okay, the strong safety here knows somebody's man-to-man on him. I don't have to key him as much. So I think how the programming works is that this guy is choosing his top left corner of the box based off of who is vertical first. And even though in this case the tight end is vertical first, it's not the most dangerous vertical. That should be Rieger right here. But now if I am taking him out of his picture, out of his decision making, the first guy he's going to look to go to is Rieger right here. So now if I run this, you see that he actually runs with him. Now if it's Tyreek Hill, he might still outrun him there, but again, Mutt, you can match speed with speed. And now the other thing that you might want to consider doing is putting the weak safety in man coverage on the point guy. So if we don't, we can still get burnt by verticals right here. So if we're not actually taking this guy, again, we can get burnt. Again, I didn't have time in the pocket, but we can get burnt by that crosser. So we may potentially want to put ourselves man-to-man here, even though we don't necessarily have to do that assignment, and cross-man the weak safety on the point guy, who is most likely going to be the guy running the crosser route. So in this case, again, if we run verticals right here, you'll have a much better job there. Again, assuming you actually have the speed, in which case we don't right here. Or if you want to man him up, or actually you could just even leave it like this. And if you want to user the safety right here, you can man yourself up on the tight end right here, so that this guy will be solid, and then you can still play any crossers coming this way and leave this guy to do his work in the middle of the field. The other advantage to using the weak safety here is that you can press this guy without being worried of getting beat over the top. So one technique that you can use is you can peek at that matchup over there after the snap. If your guy gets beat and that receiver is running a streak, you can just cover that. But most guys running bunch don't want to do that, right? That's essentially just a waste of a wide receiver. So usually, he's running a drag or something like that, in which case that press is going to totally take him out of the picture. So you can just peek at that. If he goes underneath, then we can be a lot more aggressive over here and then take any crossers that are coming this way as well. So that's something that you might want to consider as well. But otherwise, the second setup is really based off of manning yourself up on this tight end, and then potentially, doing something like this. And if you want to be really safe, you can put this guy in a middle third right here. So if you let this guy, if you're not actually worried about covering the tight end, he runs straight. This guy, number 2, runs a crosser. You'll still have some safety help over the middle of the field that you can count on, that he's not going to go anywhere that you don't want it to be there. So that's that one. But in that case, actually, if you do that, you might have nobody to match this post over here. So you might want to keep him in just in case. So if I go like this, and if we run the exact same thing here, we're still going to be safe over the top of that post. And the last setup that we can go through is just simply calling cover 9 right here. So you still have the nice work on the weak side right here, where this guy can potentially take out that solo side wide receiver. This guy can potentially take out the running back, and this guy can help on posts and crosser routes. And then it's just essentially just a change up right here. So if we want a zone right here that's there that we can count on, so if they're running any crossers to that side, or even any corner routes, depending on which corner route it is, this guy can actually sink underneath that. And then what that allows us to do is essentially just get another hook defender. So we can either leave this guy to do his 3-rec work, or leave this guy to do his vert hook work, and cycle between those guys who we want to user. This nickel guy can potentially be somebody that's free, so we can potentially man him up on one of these guys, try to take him out of the play with man coverage. Of course, we want to press him, but I already moved him beforehand. Or you can put him on a hard flat while this guy is in a cloud flat. And you can potentially do your guessing game zone coverage on that side if you'd like. Or if you want to be safe, put a middle third right here, and you can user this guy right here. Or you can you type flat on the man up on the tight end, because he's usually the one running the flat there. You do have a little bit more creativity right here if you run this cover 9 look, but again, it's really just a change up from the other two. I would say the first one is going to be your best bet, the second one is your second best bet, and your third one. Now, of course, again, you're going to be safe over the top here because you have that half defender. But you are going to be vulnerable right here, so you do want to check before you do any sort of roaming around, or you can just put him there. Say if it's an end game situation, and you want to stay in this defense, but you want to be a little bit more safe. I would say this cover 9 with potentially this guy in a middle third would definitely be the way to go on that. And one last tip before we round this video out is that you saw there, if you do have a mismatch here on the weak safety, like say if you're playing regs or something, and if you have a pretty slow guy right here, and you want to guarantee him matching those crossers, you can walk him down into the box manually, or if you're running this at a big nickel over G, you can just show blitz, and he'll do that himself. And what that means is that he gets in a little bit of a better position against these verticals, these deep crossers where he can drift underneath it and then pick up from there, and he sticks to that route much better. So in that case, I even left this guy right here, and you saw that he was able to get underneath that. If I were to put him in a half like we would in our main adjustment, he would do actually an even better job there. So that's one thing to consider. I would probably just leave him there until they show that they can beat you on that crosser. In that case, I would potentially move him down just to get him in a bit of a better position. And then the one last thing is that if they do any sort of motion, motioning this guy out, that changes quite a bit over here. So things are going to be a little bit different for you. Or they motion this guy over here and they create a 2x2. It really changes the coverage quite a bit. So some of these things don't necessarily directly apply. I don't think we have time for that in this video, but we can definitely do that in a video in the near future. But otherwise, I think those 3 setups with the minor little tips and tricks are definitely going to help you along the way. Are they going to shut everything down? No. But I think it's at least a different and unique way of coming up against it. Usually people are going to be doing all sorts of zone and man. A lot of these bunch guys don't come across this a lot, and you can be a little bit different on that. And I think it's just much funner overall. Okay, so that'll be it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.